Looking at using init and destroy methods for our beans, we now explore how these beans can be created out of a class and treated differently from regular objects created from that same class. So in our IoT device.java, if we want to initialize a bean without worrying about the Java class constructor, we use the initialization method. So this is our class constructor, we're bringing it back here. This is the only thing we're bringing back, we're changing. And what we are adding in is our init and destroy beans. You can take a look at these for a second. Typically, inside the init bean, we would do initializing, and inside the destroy, we would typically do some deleting. Like we would have something happening in here and something happening in here, just little methods inside of here. But just to check this, we are going to do print statements. Now we need to actually link these to our bean definition. For this, we're going to go back to our XML file and use it once again. Redefining the beans with new definitions. So just the attributes here and here are going to be new. The actual bean ID and bean name for both of these are the same. We're changing this to like bean 1 and this to bean 2. That's all. We're still in the same package and we're getting the same class as well. If we wanted to change package or change class, we would have to change these names as well. Now we can see that we're calling our init method in our destroy method, and we're setting equal to our destroy bean in our init bean for both of these right here. And that is how we would get that. So we are now using our XML again and changing these as well. Going into our main, we're in a second, we can see that in our IoT device bean configuration, we're not going to be using this at all, so we can comment out or just leave it as is. I don't think it's going to affect the program if we just leave it, because we're not actually using it right here. This is what we've done previously with our application context, app context, and we're passing in our IoT device bean config. But now we can see we're passing in our XML file. And well, to pass in our XML file, we're going to need our class path XML application context. So that's going to be right here. That's how we pass in an XML file, and the annotation configuration application passes in just like a Java file. So we're going to just set it to the same name, everything right here. The only difference is the class path. Now, what we want to do is call our sysout.println and retrieve any instantiated beans. Because remember here, right here, once we do this in our applications context.xml, we are going to make our beans already. If we just use the beans one, it would do like a lazy instantiation and not make the beans. But we can see that if it runs, we have object successfully created. We have our IoT device bean has been initialized inside the init bean method, and then object created, and then we have our IoT has been initialized, and then inside the init bean method right here. So what this is doing is when we call this right here, it's going to first get this first bean ID. And then inside of here, it's going to call our constructor for IoT device. It's going to call our constructor right here, and then it's going to call our init. And then it's going to do the same thing for this next one as well. So we're going to do both of these just from this, and if we had more, it would do more as well. And then after this, we have the sysout.println retrieving our instantiated beans. So after we do this instantiation for all of our beans, however many we have, we can do a get bean right here where we actually get this. So we do our IoT device, which is our class. We store it in a name. We're casting this as an IoT device because this is going to return as an object. We have our app context.getBean. We are going to get this bean associated with this name, and the same thing for this one below it. And then we are just going to do a set for both of these, because once we do this, we access this class that has been instantiated. And then we're just going to add these into our setters, and then we're going to call our bean1 and bean2 right here. And that's going to call just automatically the toString method if we call this class. It's automatically going to do that. So if we were to run it, we have this right here, and this is from creating this right here, and that's all about that. Then we have this next chunk where we have our sysout.println retrieving our instantiated beans right here, and we have both of our IoT devices. Now notice that we have a delete right here. The bead, it should say bead or bean, I misspelled that. This should be bean right here, has been destroyed. Well, if we run it how it is right now, it's not going to say that. So let's just take a look. We can see that there's no deleting. And this is because we have our application context right here. Instead of an application context, this needs to be a class path XML application context to get the full work of it. And then we can scroll down to the very bottom right here, and at the very end is when we're going to want to close. So we can just do an app context.close, It's going to be what we have inside of here being called our destroy method. We can see that inside of here, we just have our, because once we do this class path, we have our app context and we get all of the methods from it. We can invoke any methods we want. So our app context dot close, and our close is going to call the destroy bean here. So once we close that, we're going to close everything. We can now run our main, and then it's going to give us this output right here telling us that it has been destroyed inside of the destroy bean method. Now we can accomplish the same thing using our previously better mentioned annotation based bean configuration. These are in the playlist link below the like button where we talked about this and the original code for it. So just like in our XML file over here, where we made 2 instances of our bean method, we're going to want to do the same in our IoT device bean configurer method. So our POM XML again is the same. Our IoT device is the same. Make sure we have just nothing over here. We don't need a component because we are putting it inside of our bean class right here. We have our configuration right here. It's configuring, and now we have 2 instances of our bean right here. Notice the name. This is important. Right now, our method name I don't believe is important, but we are returning for both of these a new instance of our IoT device, which is this class right here. We have our init, we have our destroy, so this is init b and this is our destroy bean. Now both of these have 2 different names, so we can call them differently, just as we had in our XML file. Going back into our main is where we're going to use this. Now we're not using our application context, nor can we use our class path XML. The reason why we can't use our class path XML is because, well, this is not an XML file. This is based on Java. So we have our annotation configure application context, and then we're storing this in our app context, and we're setting it to a new annotation configure application context. We're passing in our IoT device config.class. Now I believe this is the same thing for up here. I think I made a mistake when I put it in quotes. So if we were to use that, I think it would be like that. Might be in quotes, but I'm pretty sure it's in like this .class form. So we're passing in our middleman, this .class, into here, our app context. So we're pushing our beans into here. And so this is going to instantiate everything. We're going to get the same result that we have right here. And then we're going to print out retrieving our instantiated beans right here. We're not going to change anything inside of here. I kept this name from our XML file the same and brought it over here. For our name, we added arguments to our app bean. So we have our app bean arguments just like last time, and then we have our public whatever method we have below it. So inside of here, we're just going to be setting these names to our app context.getBean. We're getting the bean here, casting it as a IoT device and putting in our bean 1 and bean 2. We're just going to use these setters in here, and then we're going to print. So that's going to give us the same results if we run our main, and that's going to just give something like this. Next, we're going to look at populating a bean in a Java config file. So we'll do that in the next video. It's linked below the like button in the description.